Welcome to the Watch Party Podcast presented by Kingdom Purpose Media. I am your host, Dr. Arthur L. Weathersby, and tonight we're having a conversation for leaders, entrepreneurs, and anyone carrying responsibility for people. Many of you may also recognize me from Kingdom Purpose TV, where I host a late night gospel music show every weekday from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's a different lane. But tonight, here on Kingdom Purpose Media, we're leaning into dialogue and leadership. My guest tonight is Dr. Andy, an entrepreneur. Well, that's what it says, y'all. Dr. Andy. I'm going to let him tell you the rest of his name. An entrepreneur, leadership coach, speaker, and author of Whose Faith Informs How He Leads in Real World Business. He owns and operates a $5 million local franchise business in Central Texas with multiple locations, a management team, and over 150 employees. For more than 20 years, he's helped business owners move from managing people to leading with purpose. That's good right there. He's also developed a leadership framework called the Four Leadership Necessities. Dr. Andy, welcome to the Watch Party Podcast.
Well, glad to be with you. Looking forward to a spirited conversation. You made me sound a lot more important and smarter than I really am.
Well, I'm sure there's much more that we probably could have said that absolutely fits you. We don't believe in just making up stuff here. You
and
said
I
that
we both have a little bit of gray in our goatees, so I think that's called seasoning. Life's happened to both of us a bit, huh?
Old age for me. I don't know about you. I'm way older than you.
All right.
You said that your faith informs everything you do, especially leadership. How did your faith begin shaping not just what you believe, but how you lead people?
That's a $1 million question. Dr. Arthur and Dr. Andy need to write that book together, and then we both could retire probably. But here's my story. I don't come from a church family, but I became a follower of Christ at a very young age. And I'm reading in the Gospels about this wonderful servant leader. And then early on in my adult life, even before I really had a career path, I was working my way through, college. I had a boss who had an anger management issue. It was a construction crew, and this guy, if he had a power tool in his hand, when he lost it, you better hope you're more than 6 feet away. So I'm reading about this servant leader Christ in the Gospels, and then I'm going to work for a guy who makes it all about him and has anger management issues. And I'll tell you, it awakened in me, it just ignited. Nobody should work for a bad boss. And that, in some respects, that was the beginning of my passion around the leadership development many years ago now, but the fire hasn't been quenched.
Amen. That's real good. And I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about leadership in the trenches. You're actively leading a large organization while also teaching leadership. How does being in the trenches every day influence the way you approach leadership compared to those who only consult?
Yeah. Yeah. That my wife and I moved into the franchise space 16 years ago, 2008, during the economic downturn, and my consulting and training and speaking business evaporated almost overnight. And I had a friend who had taken his backyard swim lessons and turned them into an indoor swim lesson experience in a retail shopping center. He had franchised it, and my friend asked me to help them expand the brand and bring it to Texas. So instead of being a student of leadership, I started leading teams and leading people. And all of a sudden, I realized all these pithy little truisms that I had been spouting in my consulting, they're hard. Leading hard conversations, disciplining people, giving people one more chance, knowing when they need grace versus when you need to hold them to the fire. Dr. Arthur, I'm not sure any of us ever get that right, but I think the tension of leadership is that we wrestle with it. It's not an easy answer. Now, I have to put a caveat in. We sold those businesses 4 months ago. I am a former $5 million business owner. and I'm back to consulting and coaching and speaking full time. But August 24th of last year, I had 150 employees. August 25th, I had one. And so the lessons are still real. The lessons are still raw. The lessons are still new. And there's a difference between being a practitioner and being somebody who's read a lot of books about leadership.
That's right. There's a season for everything. It's as what the Bible tells us. So I understand that because I was involved in leadership as well when I worked for the federal government. We're gonna move right along. That's real good, Doc. So wait a minute. You sold. Now I'm gonna do something because this ain't on
You
the
got to go
script.
off script.
Yeah, yes, I am. So you sold the $5 million business, but I presume that you got more than $5 million for that sale.
well, I will tell you, Arthur, building an indoor year-round child-friendly swim center in a shopping center is a very expensive endeavor. And my wife and I have built five of them in the last 16 years. What really happened on August 25th is we started paying off a bunch of debt. And so that felt great. The swimming schools were paying all of that debt, but my name was on the bottom line. And today, all of that debt is gone. We're not on easy street. We didn't cash it in and move to the rich side of town. But it is nice not having that pressure of, man, if the schools don't make it, I've got to come out of pocket for a bunch of money. So it was an interesting experience. And the group that I sold it to, they're friends from another part of the country who had 16 of their own schools. They're very good operators. They're going to take these five swim schools and help even more kids learn to get safe in the water. And so it's all been a wonderful thing. And you're interviewing somebody who has a whole lot less debt on his shoulders than he did 6 months ago.
Well, that's all right. You sound like a man that knows when to hold them and know when to fold them.
What they tell you is the right time to sell is when you've got a motivated buyer who will pay you a fair price. And that's what
That's right.
happened. Yeah.
Very, very good. All right, we're gonna move on. We got for those hearing about it for the first time, what are the four leadership necessities and why does leadership break down even when one of them is missing?
Yeah. Great question. Well, first of all, you gave me more credit than I deserved in the outset. I've discovered these simply looking at good leaders. If I'm not sure I was ever a great leader when I was running my business, but I'd like to think I'm a student of good leadership. You know, nothing new has been written about leadership. You get past Jesus and Marcus Aurelius, there's really nothing new in the last 2,000 years. But watching what leaders do, I boiled it down to a simple model: these four leadership necessities of competence, of character, of conviction, and of covenant. That interchange of formal and informal relationship. And I think anybody who is managing a team and wants to become a high achieving leader, if they're trying to grow in their competence, if they're developing rich character, if they're recognizing the personal and formal covenant they have with their people, and if they're seeing down the road further, becoming people of greater conviction. I don't know if any of us ever arrive as fully formed leaders, but we can assure ourselves that we're on the journey of becoming a high achieving leader if we're working in those four areas. And here's the problem: the second half of your question, what happens if you default on any of those? My anger management boss lacking in character, and as a result, he did not have the authority to lead well. And so you compromise your leadership if you're lacking in any of these areas. You never get it perfect, but but if you're working on it, it's a developmental process that turns you from a manager into a high achieving leader.
And those are some exceptional points that you use on Dr. Andy. And as a matter of fact, I would say that essentially it's in alignment with what we do in our relationship with Christ. We're not perfect. We
Yeah,
strive to do the
yeah,
best that we can do.
that's right. So that's why Paul can say in Philippians, I press on for the gift I've already been given.
That's right.
That's you're exactly right. And so for me, working at becoming a high achieving leader is a lifetime process. The only one who ever got it right, obviously, was the carpenter that wandered the Middle East 2,000 years ago.
And all we have to do is just follow the plan that he laid out.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, all right. Now, how do you integrate? We're going to talk about faith in the workplace. How do you integrate faith into leadership in a way that's authentic, respectful, and effective in diverse workplaces?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, and I know this from being a follower of yours and listening to some of your earlier podcasts, our job is not to show up and give somebody the four spiritual laws and bang their head into the kingdom. Our job is to show up and love them well and wait for opportunities for them to respond. And I think the challenge when you're a leader is loving them well doesn't mean giving them the easy path. Because
That's
if
fact.
you've been given the stewardship of an organization, of a team, of a mission, part of your responsibility of a leader is you've got metrics, you've got KPIs, you've got dollars you're responsible for, you've got troops that are under your control, you've got projects that you need to bring to completion. And so the challenge is for you and me to be people of our word who are also recognized as warm and rich in character. Once again, I'm not sure we ever fully arrive, but that's the striving that we're supposed to do.
That's extremely important, and also I would say leading them to a place where they can go beyond where they see themselves at,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you want them to produce at the highest levels that they possibly can produce.
Well, and the truth of the matter is, if you and I do that well, some of these people may exceed us because
That's
they
right.
have more natural capability in certain areas. So I think part of the recognition of a high achieving leader is kind of that John the Baptistism. He must increase, I must decrease. The best leaders, some of the best leaders, you and I'll never hear of them because it's their organization, their ministry, their impact that gets advanced, not their own personal brand.
And that's operating from a place of humility.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Very good,
exactly right.
Doc. Very good. Let's talk about real world leadership pressure. Managing more than 150 people, employees, comes with real challenges. What leadership mistake do you see most often, and how does your model help correct it?
Well, I think assuming that you have to have the answer as the leader. I think most of the time when my team came to me with a problem, I needed to slow down and not fix so fast, not solve so soon, but ask them some more questions. Let them go a little bit deeper. They probably have better line of sight into the relationship conflict, into the job disappointment, into the employees not showing up for their shift, or customers angry with our performance. The closer you can get to the actual hands-on work, probably the better the answer is going to be. And then I think the other thing about that, Dr. Arthur, is you and I, if we're the ultimate leader of an organization, we need to be the backstop. Man, if I've got a customer that cannot be satisfied by a general manager, I'm there at the end of the phone call, right? And I'll do what I can. Our job is not to fix the people underneath us; it's to support them so that they fix themselves. Now that's an easy answer. It's hard to do that at times, but our job is to help them become the best they can be, not the best we want them to be.
That's absolutely correct. That's one of the things that I was very adamant about when I was working for the Social Security Administration, and we started a call center from the ground floor up. And I was his first deputy branch manager. When we started with 75 untrained employees in that area, and got them trained and got them operating at a very high level. And when I left, we had 319 agents on the phones.
Wow,
And
wow, wow.
yeah, it's but what I want to see if how you feel about this, Doc. When you're managing a large number of people, you have to come to the understanding that you cannot manage everybody the same way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's a challenge.
Oh, and I think that speaks to two things. You talked about humility a couple of minutes ago. Part of what I've got to recognize is it's not about making them like me. It's about meeting them where they're at. I was working with a client outside of Atlanta last year, a light manufacturing firm, and one of their frontline managers, he had 17-year-olds and 70-year-olds on his team. And you talk about needing to handle people differently. Part of his job was just figuring out, how do I communicate differently to these, and we can talk about generational differences and lifestyle differences. And I think really just the whole recognition is you got to meet people where they're at if you're going to lead them effectively. You can see on the video, I've got a dog behind me. We've rescued 15 dogs over the years of our marriage, and they've defined our lives. The one little bestseller that's propped up there over my shoulder is called The Golden Principles: Life and Leadership Lessons from a Rescued Dog. And one of the lessons dogs have taught us is every dog is a little bit different, and you got to meet them where they're at. So I think that's true about humans as well.
That's absolutely true. That to me is essential to being an excellent leader, a great
Yeah,
leader. That you have to be able to recognize that you have to meet every individual employee where they're at to get to the optimum goal. You may have to do it a certain different way with this person as opposed to that one. Now, Doc, you've outlined some things in the discussion that we've had with the questions. So I got a question. You written a book?
I've written several books, and
Okay.
the one that's become a little bestseller is sitting over on my shoulder. The Golden Principles, um, and it's really it's leadership lessons from a rescued dog. It's like a chicken soup for the soul book, and my doctorate in leadership and all of the writing I've done and speaking. I think I learned more from these rescued needy dogs than I've learned from all of the 25,000 pages of reading I've done in this area. The one over my shoulder now is a cattle dog mix. And one of the things we've learned is cattle dogs, they need a job. If you don't give them a job, they're going to get themselves in trouble. We've mainly rescued golden retrievers, and they just kind of lie down at your feet and go fetch when you ask them to. We have to keep Traveler busy, or he makes trouble. Well,
Oh,
he's different, right? Yeah,
well, that brings in your leadership skills.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Very good, Doc. This is real good. So, if anyone watching tonight feels stuck managing instead of leading, what is one practical shift they can make this week?
Yeah. I think there is a truism you and I are both aware of. You'll never be a better leader than you are a person. You've got to lead yourself first. So it's
That's right.
appropriate because we're recording this at the beginning of the new year. If anybody is stuck right now, stop and take care of yourself early in the morning. I call it the leader's hour. It may not be a 60-minute hour, but you need to turn inward first thing in the morning with some resolutions on the day, some spiritual development things, maybe some physical development. Take a look at your to-do list, think about your longer term strategy. Get ready for the day by spending some time in what I call the leader's hour to prepare yourself for the rest of the day. For many of us, that leader's hour is the most important hour of our day because all of the other leadership that we're supposed to exert throughout the day comes from the reservoir of energy we invested during that first thing in the morning leader's hour.
That makes a lot of sense, Doc, because how can you lead people, other people, if you cannot find a way to lead your own self?
Exactly right. Exactly right. I worked for another boss a number of years ago who he had a pretty high performing team underneath him for a while. But Dr. Arthur, part of the problem was he always took the credit. When we did something that really hit it out of the park, he made sure he was the one at the front of the line. He made sure he was the one standing up at the conference table. And I'll tell you that that's just exactly opposite of what you and I are talking about, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately he left that organization and that team fell apart, even though it was a good team because he wasn't a good person and therefore he wasn't a good leader.
Yeah. That's sad
Yeah,
because a leader can make or break a good team.
that's right. Yeah, I'll even say a good leader can turn a mediocre team into a better team than they probably ought to be. Yeah,
That's true. That's absolutely true. Because people have a tendency to follow the example that you set before them.
yeah, yeah.
All right, that's good, Doc. An organization grow, leadership must mature. As organizations grow, Arthur, leadership must mature. What happens when leaders don't grow as their responsibilities expand?
Wow, you're asking some good questions. I think that the organization cannot grow beyond the leadership level. John Maxwell talks about this in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. He calls it the law of the lid. And if you can't get beyond this, the team underneath you can't get beyond that. And so I think one of two things are going to happen. Either your team is going to wallow in mediocrity, or you're going to lose your good people because they'll realize I'm held back by the leadership above me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I told them my employees when I was working in Huntington, West Virginia, because I had one question why they weren't being promoted because they had more seniority. I said, there's only one thing that I look for to determine whether or not somebody can be promoted, and that's demonstrated ability. You need to demonstrate the ability where you are that you can go to that next level. And so
yeah,
it should be with leaders as well. If they're not demonstrating ability to go to another level, then whoever puts them in that position should not have done so.
yeah. Well, and that's when I was identifying these four leadership necessities you and I talked about 10 minutes ago. That necessity of competence. Leaders have to be good at what they do in order to lead well. Now, as you and I both know, as you grow in leadership, some of your responsibilities need to change. You're no longer handling that piece of equipment on the plant floor. Now you're handling schedules, or you're handling pipeline, or you're setting up projects. You're managing people and not just things, but you got to be competent at what you need to be competent at if you're going to be a good leader.
That's right. And one of the things that I used to try to encourage people is that, listen, if you've demonstrated that you've been able to handle a particular situation previously where you were successful in, that's your foundation to go to that next level,
Yeah.
because you've already established a pattern that I may not have known what I was doing when I started out, but I
uh,
learned it, and then I became successful at it. And this next level, I may not know it as well, but I'm expecting the same outcome.
yeah. The only challenge with that is at times I've worked a lot with sales leaders over the years. And the challenge you just identified is the sales leader who's promoted to a sales management position, who thinks, well, I was always the best sales guy, so I'm going to go in and close this business for my salespeople. I'm going to take the reins. And part of what they have to do at times is say, you know what? Andy's only going to do it 95% as well as I would. But now I've got 8 Andys on my team. And so that's 800% more than I could have, even though my individual team members are not where I'm at yet. I got to give them grace and help them grow rather than take over.
That's right. It's not your responsibility to come in there and do their work
Yeah.
just because you have the experience. All
But that's
right,
hard
Doc.
at times, isn't it? It's hard because you see, man, this we're going to lose this client. We're going to be late. We're going to be over budget, whatever it is. And
That's
you
right.
just, so maybe that leads us to another point you and I can talk about. I think leaders need to recognize two things. Leaders cut their teeth in times of failure
Yes,
because you're going to miss the mark some. And so, how do leaders lead through failure? And then the other thing that I think is true is leaders are the ones who get stuck having all the hard conversations. Indeed, I'll maintain if all you're having are easy conversations, you're probably not leading yet. Leaders have
that's
hard
right.
conversations.
That's right. That's right. It's the same way in ministry as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
All
My
right,
wife and
Doc.
I are involved in the pre-marriage mentoring ministry at our church, and we just had to have a really hard conversation with this couple just a couple of days ago over a cup of coffee. And it's like, man, it sure would be easier just to say, hey, I'm just a volunteer minister. I don't need to do this. But that would have been acquiescing away from what we are called to do as marriage mentors.
To whom much is given, much is required, Doc. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Looking back over your journey, what is one leadership lesson God had to teach you the hard way?
I gotta. It's two sides of the same coin. One is it's not about me. I think that needs to be on the back of every leader's business card so that anytime They hand the business card to somebody else. What they see on the back of it is, it's not about me. And the other half of that reality is, um, it's God's name. I am who I am. I am here, and I am the forever here. And so leaders will never have all the right answers,
No,
but leaders who lean into their relationship with God recognizes He is here. And
that's
so
right.
I think it's that combination of it's not about me, and if God's put me in a position of leadership, I've got to trust that He wants me to lead.
That's right. Absolutely. And he says that when within him there is no failure, and as long as you stay within him, you can't fail.
Yeah, yeah. And we got to be careful about that, right? Because you read through the Old Testament, and man, there's a bunch of apparent failures there. But the long story, the long game, um, there is no failure. So
That's right.
I think probably that's another thing. I think there's so much concentration these days on, celebrity influencers. I got 10,000 followers, so I'm a leader of my pack. You're not a leader. You just have a cute Instagram post. Leaders typically get beat up over the long haul. It's hard work.
Yes, sir. It's not something that you just be looking to be in that position for. That's for sure.
That's right. That's
All
right.
right, Doc. What we're going to do, let me see. Our closing question for you is for leaders who want to honor God and steward people well, what does faith informed leadership look like in today's culture?
Yeah. So I think it starts with that leader's hour that you and I talked about a few minutes ago. It starts with you of your own version, down on your knees every day, saying, "God, help me lead." Uh, I think it's recognizing that we lead in a world where Christian virtues are not typically at the forefront anymore, and
That's right.
so we don't get an automatic pass that he's a good leader, she's a good leader. We just have to shut up and do the work and let the evidence speak for itself. Um, and then we have to be willing to pay the price. You and I both could tell stories for the next hour on this podcast of what it cost us time, money,
Mhm.
relationships to try to believe in people to take them to the next level. And people are going to disappoint you, right?
That's right.
But you don't have a choice.
That's just the truth of the matter. Now,
Yeah.
Doc, is there any way that people can reach out to you and contact you? Because you're back in the consulting business. So,
That's right. That's right. 150 employees to one employee now. I like it.
so how can they reach out and contact you?
Well, Neillie Leadership Group, and you put up the spelling of my last name there on the screen. So Neillie. Neillie Leadership Group is my website, and there's a link at the top of my website. Anybody wants to get a 15-minute phone call, I'm sure available to pick each other's brain about leadership stuff. The other thing is my business coach told me to have some type of resource available. So there's an 8-page ebook, the 3 imperative leadership conversations, how to hold that hard conversation that you and I talked about, how to hold a coaching conversation, how to hold a 3-fold affirmation conversation, the 3 imperative leadership conversations. That's available at leadershipmaterials.com. Anybody can just go there, and leadership materials, they can download that ebook. So there's a couple of places that I can stay in touch with folks.
Uh, Dr. Andy, we thank you for joining us and sharing your experience and wisdom. To everyone watching, thank you for being a part of the Watch Party podcast on Kingdom Purpose Media. If you enjoy late night gospel music and encouragement, join me on Kingdom Purpose TV every weekday from 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I assure you, we're going to have a good time, a great time listening to some great gospel music. I am Dr. Arthur L. Weathersby. This has been Kingdom Purpose Media, Watch Party Podcast. God bless you. Take care. Bye bye.